values education, creative thinking, innovation, and equity. But the actions of our district leaders reflect none of those attributes. It was great to hear Mr. Boyd speak out loud about some things maybe that should be implemented in school before hybrid starts. These are things that should have been thought of, issues that should have been raised a really long time ago. And unfortunately, there's just been so much dysfunction and again, divisiveness that's gotten in the way of these things being hammered out, things that every other district has been doing. Unfortunately, Mr. Boyd also expressed the things would be done, all of these things to go back hybrid would be to little benefit. And I think what all of us parents have said here tonight is that the benefits of in-person learning are indisputable, irrefutable. And we all agree that any in-person learning for our children at this point is better than none. Finally, I would like to say we're all relearning our jobs. We're all going to work and taking on some risk every day. There's no activity right now that has zero risk, and there won't be for a really long time. But it's should be a high priority of any community to get our kids back to school. We're woefully behind in the planning compared to other districts. Yet our timeline has been the same as everyone's, right? We've been at this since March. We're not an example of a best practice to anyone in Western Massachusetts, Hampshire County, or beyond. We're a worst case scenario. And in closing, I would just like to say all children should be prioritized at this point in time to return to in-person learning. There's just no more time. My son is a junior and thinking about college. How is he going to make up the ground that's already been lost by remote learning and what little time he has left in high school? There's just no more time for phased in approaches or things that will keep our kids out of the classroom for any more time. The health metrics show the time is now to go back. Our children need to be back in the classroom. And I really hope that all the powers that be, all the groups that are working so hard in the midst of this pandemic can come together and find a way to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you very much. The next person who has their hand raised is Michelle Sullivan.
Oh, yay. Hi, Michelle Sullivan. I live on Ryan Road. My daughter is in 9th grade. And I am a teacher, early childhood educator. My husband's a high school teacher in a different school district. I've been back in person with my children since August. My children I teach, not the ones that I had. My husband has been back on a hybrid plan since late September, early October. I wasn't planning on speaking, but it was very hard to listen to so much anger and shouting about this. This is terrible. Like, it's a rotten situation. There's absolutely no denying that. It feels like fingers are being pointed, and they're being pointed at teachers. I understand that this is really important. But my experience being in person with children is that in order for it to work, I've really had to work with the parents of the children that have been in my care. I've really needed to feel like they have my back, that they're not going to send their children to school when they're sick, and that I can trust them. I feel that the anger and the vitriol that's been spouted is being inappropriately directed. I want to say thank you to the teachers and the school committee and everybody who's been busting their butts to try and make an impossible situation work in a way that is intelligent and safe and can work for everybody. It's an impossible task. But can I just ask that people take a breath and be kind and respectful? I also feel really strongly that having this conversation without access to free universal testing, no matter how many metrics you pull up, we're in a place where we're operating without important piece. People need to feel that they can get that piece of real information in order to have like an idea of what's going on in the school building that you're working in. If no one has access to testing, you don't really know what you're working with. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Michelle. The next person who is signed up is Bridget Pinsonalt. Bridget, you want to go ahead and unmute?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Bridget Pinsonalt. I live on Sandy Hill Road in Florence, and I'm a mother at Ryan Road School. I wasn't really prepared to speak tonight, but I just felt, after hearing everything, I just felt like I had to say something. I'm speaking to say that a hybrid model, I believe, would be a disservice to the education of the students in Northampton Public Schools, and I will tell you why. For my profession, I've worked in education for over 20 years now. I currently work for an educational company that oversees various charter schools throughout the United States and worldwide. However, on my part of it, I'm looking at schools throughout the United States, K through 12. So a huge part of my job is similar to that of an instructional coach, where I'm constantly observing classes and working with teachers on how they can improve their skills, things like that. So I have been observing classes across the country for this past month now, and I've seen both hybrid and remote models, and I can confidently say that remote models are a far better option for educating our students. I feel like education is getting lost here. I feel like this has become a debate of childcare, whether people want to admit it or not. I feel like caregivers want to send their children into the building. I apologize if I'm offending anyone by saying that. It's what it seems to be to me. If we clearly are looking at it from an educational perspective, what is the best education for our students? Is it 5 days a week with their teacher? Or is it 2 days a week in person with their teacher and 3 days of some sort of independent learning, whatever is supposed to be happening on the 3 remote days? I think that Northampton Public Schools has put together an extremely strong remote learning program. I think that it is vastly different from what we saw in March. And if I were to compare the classes that my children are enrolled in, that I see while I'm working from home, and I'm obviously observing their classes as well, they are exceptional. It's absolutely an excellent education. So I really ask you all to think about the educational aspect of this. I know obviously there's a huge health portion of it, but we know we're in a pandemic. There are things going on. I've seen schools. Just today, I had to speak with a couple of teachers who are quarantining at home because they were obviously not in Northampton, in another state, but they had a student in their class with COVID. So how do you have enough substitutes for this? Because it's going to happen. It's not really an if, it's a when. Just one student getting COVID, various teachers are usually in contact with a student during the school day. So how are you going to have those teachers out for 14 days and then provide the instruct in school?
So you're at time, Bridget. So if you could just finish your final sentence, you're at 3 minutes.
Okay, so I would just say that really, when the students are ready to go in for a full 5 days, I'm all for it. Yes, get them back in the building, but until that time, let's have our strong 5 days of remote education and get our children educated. Teachers are here to educate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person who has their hand raised, I believe, is Elizabeth Bowen. Elizabeth?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Bowen. I live on Harold Street in Florence. I am both a parent and a teacher in the district. I want to sort of open by saying that unions are really important. And I don't think that that should get lost in people's very justifiable anger. I've worked in addition to the Northampton Public Schools. I've also worked at an area charter school. And in addition to my own working conditions, I think that parents really underestimate how important the union is in how honest your child's teacher can be in an IEP eligibility meeting. There are a million things that impact kids that unions facilitate, and they're really, really important. That being said, I think that the criticism that we've handled this poorly in comparison to surrounding districts is accurate. I think that the accusation that parents just want childcare is not consistent with my experience with the parents that I've talked to. If anything, the parents of my students that I've talked to are significantly underestimating how much education their children are losing right now. We have significant waiting lists for children who are in that population that is supposed to be served. I don't know, maybe Bridge Street doesn't have a waiting list, but we have significant numbers of children who are on those super vulnerable lists who are not receiving in-person services. The open meeting law issues that you see here with the school committee are not new, whether through purpose on purpose or just from lack of understanding of open meeting law. Being just this side of the law has been a consistent issue for this school committee and the school committee preceding it, actually. I think that the idea that the school committee member on the JLMC was specified should be a red flag. I think that the other school committee members involved and the school committee member named in that should be reflecting on whether or not that was okay. I think that we're making a bad situation worse by drawing this out. This conversation should have happened 2 weeks ago. And a lot of the anger that I think we're seeing is this feeling that people are refusing to make a decision. I think there are a lot of people in the middle who could live with a decision, but the idea that we're refusing to make one is very, very stressful for families. And I want to reiterate that I do think that parents are actually underestimating how much education is being lost in this model for students who are still learning to read. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elizabeth. The next person, possibly the final person with their hand raised, is Claire Lobdell. Claire?
Hi, thanks, Mayor. My name is Claire Lobdell. I live on Fairview Avenue. I have 2 children at Bridge Street School. I think the academics is going fine for them, but I wanted to speak specifically to the experience of my younger child who's 6. I just really ask you to bring them back for at least hybrid, at least the youngest kids, at least for hybrid. I know her teacher's on this call. Again, the academics are fine, but my 6-year-old is so lonely. That social emotional aspect that's just so critical to their development, she's not getting, and she's melting down every day in a way that that's new. That's not something that we experienced before, or at least not, since she got out of toddlerhood. They need to be around other kids, even if it's at a distance with a mask on. It's so tough. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. So that seems to be the last of the folks who've raised their hand to speak in public comment. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the public comment this evening. So we have on our agenda 2 items. The first is an executive session. The second is a discussion and a report on recommendations of the JLMC. Given that we have so many folks here on the call, I'd actually like to move forward, unless there's any objection from school committee, to having the report discussion and report recommendations of the JLMC first, and then do the executive session after. This originally had been a meeting planned for an executive session, and because the report was finished in time to be added to this agenda, we added it to this agenda. So I'd like to take that up first. And with that, I would turn to our representative on that committee, Member Voss.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe the chair of the JLMC is going to make the presentation.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, the agenda said had your name.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yep.
We discussed it at the meeting last night, and if it's okay with you, I think that was the preference.
Okay, certainly. So we'll then ask the chair to make that presentation. I'm trying to see if I can find the chair.
Hi, I'm right here.
Oh, sorry, Lisa, I couldn't see you. I've
Do
got
I have sharing capabilities for the PowerPoint that I sent?
Annie can, I think Annie can grant those to you or make you a co-host. Annie?
Yes, I will do that. I am trying to find her.
Yeah, it took me a while.
Okay, I just made you a co-host, Lisa.
Okay.
And you should be able to share your screen.
And oops, where'd everybody go? Hang on. Technical difficulties. There we go. Is everyone able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this is the JLMC report and recommendations for the school committee meeting October 2020. Just starting with a little bit of background. The spread of COVID-19 caused by the virus SARS-CoV-2 in March of 2020 resulted in school closures and a transition to remote learning. At that time, 8 teams were formed by district leadership to plan for school reopening, and they were working groups. The pandemic response team was one of them, and it included myself, school nurses, nurse liaison from our local health department's contract tracing team, 2 teachers, clerical members, Director of Public Health, Northampton Public Health Nurse, District Schools Physician, and our Preschool Partnership Coordinator. This team's original mission was to create health and safety protocols for the district, trainings for staff, students, and families for in-person learning and care. This team developed health and safety updates to the school community, staff daily checklist form and procedure, family and student daily checklist form and procedure, COVID-19 school staff training, Mass Department of EEC reopening for preschool plans for Northampton Public Schools, and preschool parent orientation for COVID safety, just to name a few items. The PRT was also on hand to support other teams, as an example, helping with transportation and consultation, frequency of cleaning needed for classroom materials, explanation of contact tracing and how this supports school safety. In early September, the PRT was renegotiated to become the Pandemic Response Team - Joint Labor Management Committee, JLMC, adding on new members, including additional teaching staff, ESP staff, and school committee member. The team's new mission was now to define the overarching metrics, make recommendations that could guide the district through remote, hybrid, and in-person phases. We have 2 recommendations this evening. Our first recommendation, the JLMC recommends that the school committee adopt 2 sets of metrics, health metrics and safety metrics. One set are the health metrics that will guide when any in-person learning may take place, be paused, or halted altogether. Please note this is inclusive of whether the in-person learning is occurring with special populations during the remote phase, in the hybrid phase, or during the fully in-person phase in the district. The second set of guidance the JLMC recommends are safety metrics, which guide practices on how to mitigate risk of COVID transmission during any level of in-person learning. Rationale behind this, based on the following points: the situation is fluid, and it is critical that the district has the flexibility to responsibly and responsively update procedures and policies to help prevent community spread and support contact tracing. Institutions such as schools provide a more structured framework for risk mitigation versus informal settings. And thirdly, determining safe spaces for learning depends on 3 factors: health and safety, such as access to hygiene, hand washing, and masking; ventilation, air exchange and flow; physical social distancing, square footage and room design. And to tie it all together, as an example, a range of air exchange rates to fold into an assessment of access to hygiene and room layout. The health metrics will guide when any in-person learning may take place, be paused or halted altogether, as noted. A disclosure: the current members of the JLMC are not experts in epidemiology or HVAC. Our local Board of Health may recommend temporary closure of school and remote learning for a period of time, depending on the level of COVID-19 school transmission. Our local Board of Health will call to order a meeting with the JLMC when area, county, city, and/or town rates may have an impact on our community. The JLMC will meet weekly for the remainder of the school year on Wednesday evenings from 6:30 on, with the intention and commitment to consult with the Board of Health Director and Public Health Nurse regarding the health metrics outlined on the next slides. When meeting with the Director of Public Health, we will be reviewing current cases, as we have been doing, relative impact of the area, town's community transmission, status of our public health infrastructure. So our health metrics will guide any in-person learning. On an average daily case rate over the last 14 days in the green, if it's less than 4 cases per 100,000, we are in-person learning, continue to monitoring county and